Let's take this further now. SABC News International editor Sophie Mokoena is joining us live for this discussion. Sophie, the situation in Mozambique has been a concern for many. Things seem to be calm at the weekend, but the worry is that, as we just heard even in that report, protesters may be regrouping a little later on today. What's the latest?
Well, we know that the leader of the party that's likely going to be the opposition, should the results continue to be the way they are, or there's no intervention, that is Mondlane, is going to address his people virtual today, tonight, and we expect that he will give instructions in terms of what they must do, because what we are told is that they want to put pressure ahead of the meeting of SADC, so that SADC can invite some of the opposition leaders or members or representatives, or they can invite the clergy, the religious organization, the Catholic Church that is trying to mediate in this impasse, so that they can tell the heads of state and government later in the week what has transpired during elections, and perhaps present evidence, because when we make those allegations, you must also present evidence. There's no way SADC will just listen to the hearsay, and therefore I think what they have to do, what they will be doing, it will be collecting evidence that they can share with SADC. But as you know that this is a summit of the leaders later this week. You cannot be in the assembly as a person who's not a leader of government, and therefore maybe on the margins of that meeting, then you can send people to engage them, as we've seen previously, where there were issues in the region where the leaders would meet, but those who are part of these negotiations, who are not part of government in that particular country, will be in the hotel and will be called and meet leaders in the closed sessions in the room to get information, and that information will be communicated to the leaders. But that's all what we know. But I think all eyes will be on Mozambique tonight to hear what Mondlane is going to say. He's currently in Europe, as I pointed out a few days ago, that he left Mozambique, came to South Africa, and he went straight to Sweden in Europe, and he is expected to address virtual. Unfortunately, he won't be able to take that address live because of the language barrier, translation Portuguese.
And at the same time, you speak about SADC. This is a body that will now be under scrutiny again, given what took place when it comes to the elections in Zimbabwe, the handling of that matter thereof, and a number of issues as well. So certainly a number of those who are monitoring this will be interested to see if these principles of democracy and elections that are upheld by this organization will come into play.
Yes, let's take a listen at what a member of Mondlane's party had to say. You saw him speaking in that package, but let's take further the discussion and hear what he had to say about the SADC and what we can expect. Let's take a listen.
The Constitutional Court has got the last say, and normally they've got 15 days. But because of the complexity of this process, the Constitutional Court asked for further 20 days, meaning that probably by the 15th of next month, that's when we are going to have the final results. But there is one good point, is that the Constitutional Court asked the National Electoral Commission to explain why are there so many differences between the elections for the Provincial Assembly, for the National Assembly, and for the President. It doesn't make sense.
Well, you can hear the passion there, and I think one thing that he spoke about also is how the countries in the region, particularly those that are led by the former liberation organizations, they don't trust them that much, but still they still feel they can trust South Africa, much as in the government of national unity, you have President Ramaphosa leading the government, they still feel that President Ramaphosa can do something. And they also spoke about a conversation that Kaya had with the former president of South Africa, Thabo Mbeki, calling for cool heads and calling all stakeholders to talk to avoid the war. Because you know what happened in Maputo years ago and in Mozambique, particularly during that civil war, where many people died. And you also have that problem in Cabo Delgado. You don't want the insurgents to take advantage of the situation or to see people returning to the bush and you see again rebel movements. And therefore, I think it's critical for that meeting in Harare to come up with something to ensure that there's progress in trying to mediate this issue.
And as he says there, it's a very delicate one, and whichever way that they handle it really needs to be one that is dealt with delicately. But also, Sophie, there's another developing story. The president of Botswana announcing a new cabinet, and a lot of people are talking about this one. It's all young people.
Well, good story to tell there. Clearly, democracy is holding. Smooth transition. Today, the announcement of cabinet, and as you pointed out, very, very young people. You also have a situation that the vice president is also the minister of finance, and with economics background, you also have the minister of foreign affairs. And I'm told he also studied here in South Africa, and I think he's got also the media background. And you can see that he did practice exactly what he said he was going to do in terms of bringing young people. Anyway, he is not so young, but is not that old. And I think countries will be watching, young people will be watching in other countries, and maybe we might see more young blood in different parts of the continent, particularly in the SADC region. Let's take a listen at what he had to say, because the danger here, you find a situation where people are fighting to get new sheriff in town. You have the new president, most of the time from the opposition. A year on, people are disappointed. And I asked him exactly that it's well and good to say there's new blood, there's transformation, there's young people, but the issue is, how confident are you that you will deliver?
Yeah.
Because if you want to be re-elected, do the right thing, serve the people. It shouldn't be about you. If you don't, 5 years will be here very soon. Let's take a listen when I ask him about the promises.
First, let me make it clear and be upfront about the fact that we will not disappoint. But to get to your question, see, the people who have these expectations are mature and sensible people. They appreciate the gravity of the problems that they face on a daily basis. They know what the solutions to these problems would be in the short, medium to long term. And they want these problems to be solved. That's the broad bottom line. They want these problems solved and solved quickly. We have laid out ambitions. We have put down an ambitious plan that has resulted in these promises and undertakings to the people.
Sophie, there's another story, though, that's developing. I mean, while some are still, recovering from the huge blow that was suffered by the BDP, which held on to power for nearly 6 decades in Botswana, Mauritius, it seems Prime Minister Pravin Gordhan conceded defeat in parliamentary elections?
Yes, unfortunately, he did. And I think, I don't know what's happening in the SADC region. Mozambique, now the tension, and Botswana, it was a smooth transition. South Africa, when the ANC lost majority, it was a smooth transition. Mauritius is the same, the leader accepting that he has lost the elections. And now the focus is on Namibia. Will SWAPO be able to defend its territory?
And you speak about liberation movements, and the broader conversation is, are they still going to be the answer? Botswana decided differently, and as you say, Namibia will be an interesting one. But thank you so much for that update there. That's SABC News International Editor Sophie Mokoena.